What we're looking at here is a cutaway of a Rosemount Model 3051S super module pressure transmitter. The housing has been cut away to reveal the internal workings of the transmitter, and so now we get to see how these things work inside. Right here, what I'm pointing at is the cell itself, the differential capacitance cell that measures the differential pressure that we apply to the transmitter, whatever fluid that might be. Down here, you can see where the isolating diaphragms normally go. For the sake of cutting it away, they did not install the isolating diaphragms. So what you see, the little capillary tube right there, the passageway, conducting fill fluid all the way up to the sensing cell, would normally be on the back side of a thin metal diaphragm. The diaphragm is not there, and so there's no real isolation. You can see here that tiny little hole we're looking at right there is where the fill fluid goes from the back side of the sensing diaphragm all the way up a small tube into the sensing cell itself. So the isolating diaphragm and the fill fluid makes it so the process fluid itself, it could be dirty, corrosive, whatever, doesn't have to come all the way up into the sensing cell. Only clean fill fluid does that. One of the features of the super module transmitter here is that all the electronics, the important electronics portions of it, are built into this module right here, not up in the upper housing as has been traditionally the case. So all of the heart circuitry, the ranging, trim settings, all that stuff is handled, the A to D conversion, D to A conversion is handled down here in this module, the metal module, which is all sealed up in close proximity to the sensing cell itself. The blue housing, all it does is serves as a place to put terminals for connection points, and in this case we have the optional LCD display on the transmitter, so you can actually see a readout of the pressure or the percent signal or diagnostic alarms and things like that. But the housing does not play as quite an important role as it did in years past when they used to have the electronics mounted up here. Now all the electronics are down here, which is what accounts for the additional height of the cell assembly, the super module, the additional height right here, which is unique to this design, a departure from other 3051 models. But the basic coplanar design, we have two isolating diaphragms here with small tubes running up into the sensing cell. That is fairly similar to what was done before with the earlier 3051s. And you can see again, looking at the differential capacitance cell, you can see the fill fluid tubes that come up and bring the fill fluid into the sensing diaphragm right in the middle. There's a thin metal diaphragm that flexes one way or the other depending on how much pressure you have applied to the sides of the cell. You can also see the electrodes here, the wires that go into the stationary sensing electrodes. That sensing diaphragm in the middle that flexes back and forth acts as a third electrode, a common electrode in which we measure the capacitance between it and either one of these outer two stationary electrodes. So let's say, for example, you apply a pressure to the high side here. Process pressure pushes against the isolating diaphragm. That pushes fill fluid up through the capillary tube into the right-hand side of our sensing cell. That causes the sensing diaphragm to flex to the left as viewed from this perspective. That closes up the gap, or the distance between the sensing diaphragm and this electrode, and widens the gap between the sensing diaphragm and that electrode. That means the capacitance on the left-hand side increases because it has a shorter distance, and the capacitance on the right-hand side decreases because it has a further distance. We know that capacitance between two metal objects is inversely proportional to the distance between them. So anyway, that's a quick tour of a cutaway, a Rosemount 3051S super module differential pressure transmitter.